reading, we have this individual come to our Lord asking him to tell his brother to divide the family inheritance as he should. And this is very relevant because I think this is a situation that many people encounter in their own lives, especially when the family, the siblings are divided. Some live here in Canada or other wealthier countries, whereas some of the other siblings might be living back home in perhaps poorer countries, and the parents who passed away leave their poverty in those poorer countries, and the brother or the sibling there does not want to divide the property. So I think this is an issue that can be very relevant to certain people even today. Of course, the entire message is relevant to all of us. Now, why is it that our Lord, his response is, "Who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" I mean, our Lord knows everything. He knows what is right. He knows what is just. He knows who is the one who is trying to cheat the other brother. Why isn't it that he speaks out? And there could be a number of reasons here. Well, first of all, he didn't come to, enact justice regarding earthly matters. So he comes to give us spiritual goods, not to distribute material goods. Now, in one sense, all material goods are from God. That is true. But we do have a right to possession, to possess things. And it's not as if God is going to force us to give. If we give, we should give freely. We should give out of charity. So the other thing is, if our Lord were to decide one way or the other, one of the parties would not be satisfied and would be angry and resentful towards our Lord, which means he may jeopardize his salvation. So of course our Lord doesn't want to do anything to jeopardize anyone's salvation. So it's not a matter for God to judge. And it's important that we keep this in mind because, if you find yourself in this situation and you're praying to God, God, convince my brother to share the inheritance with me, well, maybe God is not going to intervene in that case. Not to say that you can't necessarily pray for that. So there's different reasons. And the other thing is that, one could make the argument, which I think the argument usually is that, well, you live in a more advanced country where the standard of living is much higher. You seem to be well off, whereas back here, we're kind of struggling and we need the money more than you do. Sometimes they make this argument. Now, there might be some truth to that. But even then, I think the situation is that if the parents leave a certain inheritance and they pass away, the inheritance should be divided equally. And the brother or the sibling who says, we live in a poorer country, we deserve more, then the ideal would be that the person who perhaps needs the money less or the property less can say to his brother or sibling, okay, you take more of the share than I will. I think that's fair because you are struggling more than I am. But of course, they're not dialoguing in this way. It's really they want the money. And so the real reason as to why our Lord is not willing to intervene in this case is because both siblings in this case have the wrong attitude. They're more concerned about the money, getting the inheritance, than anything else. And this is why our Lord gives this parable that the most important thing is to have riches towards God and not to have worldly possessions and worldly riches. Now, we can argue that to a certain extent we do need to have worldly riches. Especially people who are planning for their retirement, they do need to lay some money aside. But how much money do you need? And the whole point is, do we know when we're going to die? We don't. So the ideal is that we try to be generous with our wealth, not just our wealth, not just our possessions, but also our time. Notice in the parable that our Lord gives of this man who, has a great abundance of crops and builds bigger barns. And then he says to himself, my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. In other words, be selfish. I'm going to be selfish. I'm just going to enjoy myself. I don't really care about others. I mean, theoretically, he could have shared his crops with the poor. That's what he should have done. And if he did that, he would still have enough left for himself, but he would have been laying up for himself heavenly treasures. Now, the question arises, when it comes to the inheritance, okay, let's just say the sibling is not willing to share the inheritance. Well, it is a matter of justice that you have a right to protest that and to say, look, you have to share the inheritance. It's left for all of us, or for both of us, right? And you can even bring that to the law courts or whatever. Like, you can take steps to try to ensure that. But once you've done your part, then you have to step back, and if you still don't get the inheritance, then you kind of have to be resigned to accepting the situation and not to be angry or resentful about that. I hear from many people, or I encounter many people that, they don't talk to their siblings anymore because of these issues of inheritance. Well, they didn't share the inheritance, so I'm angry with them, so I don't talk to them, they don't talk to me. That's not good. In other words, what's more valuable to you? The money, the inheritance, or having the right attitude towards someone as close to you as your sibling, whom you should love, right? What's more valuable? What's more profitable for your soul? To have the money, or to be in a state of peace and to be gaining heavenly riches for yourself? Now, okay, another thing that we can point out is that, okay, let's say you try to do what you can to get your share of the inheritance, you can't, and you're resigned to the fact that you can't have the inheritance, your brother or your sibling is not going to share it. Okay, you should be concerned about your brother, your sibling, because in one sense they stole from you. They stole your share of the inheritance without your permission to do that, without you saying, okay, you can have my inheritance or whatever. So what should you do in that case? Well, you should be very concerned for the state of their soul. So what you do? You should pray for them, and what you should actually do, it may sound hard for some people, but this is the reality. What you should do is, okay, you acknowledge in your own mind, okay, my brother stole my inheritance. But you know what? I'm going to say to my brother, look, I understand that you need the inheritance more than I do, or at least you believe that, but the way you went about it was wrong. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you my share of the inheritance. Not that you have it to give, because he's already stolen it from you. But by doing this, you're making peace with your brother. You're showing that you have no resentment. You're not going to get the inheritance anyways. And you've performed a tremendous act of charity, which you will merit greatly for doing that. Now, yes, it's complicated. I understand that every case is difficult, but we need to consider what is more valuable, what is more profitable to my soul, to have that inheritance, or to be at peace with my brother, with my sibling, and, to lay up heavenly treasures for myself. How do we do that? Using the possessions, using, the time, the things that we have, and sharing it with those who perhaps are in greater need than we are. And some of those individuals may actually be our siblings. They may be in greater need, not just of material help, like finances, but spiritual help also, by showing love to them, forgiving them, and saying, okay, you can have my inheritance. That's a great act of charity, something to consider. Just a few announcements. I will be away tomorrow to Thursday, so we will have the regular Mass schedule. We will also have the regularly scheduled adoration before Mass time, but there will be no confessions before the Mass, so various priests will be filling in to celebrate the Mass. I will be on the priest seminar this week, which starts this afternoon.